This episode of Bright Hearth is brought to you by Indigo Sundries Soap Company, GM King's Coffee, Private Family Banking, and by our supporters at patreon.com. We were keeping our eye on 1984. When the year came and the prophecy didn't, thoughtful Americans sang softly in praise of themselves. The roots of liberal democracy had held. Wherever else the terror had happened, we at least had not been visited by the Orwellian nightmares. But we had forgotten that alongside Orwell's dark vision, there was another, slightly older, slightly less well-known, equally chilling. Aldous Huxley's Brave New World. Contrary to common belief, even among the educated, Huxley and Orwell did not prophesy the same thing. Orwell warns that we will be overcome by an externally imposed oppression. But in Huxley's vision, no big brother is required to deprive people of their autonomy, maturity, and history. As he saw it, people will come to love their oppression, to adore the technologies that undo their capacities to think. What Orwell feared were those who would ban books. What Huxley feared was that there would be no reason to ban a book, for there would be no one who wanted to read one. Orwell feared those who would deprive us of information. Huxley feared those who would give us so much that we would be reduced to passivity and egoism. Orwell feared that the truth would be concealed from us. Huxley feared the truth would be drowned in a sea of irrelevance. Orwell feared we would become a captive culture. Huxley feared we would become a trivial culture, preoccupied with some equivalent of the feelies, the orgy-porgy, and the centrifugal bumble-puppy. As Aldous Huxley remarked in Brave New World Revisited, the civil libertarians and rationalists who are ever on the alert to oppose tyranny, quote, failed to take into account man's almost infinite appetite for distractions. In 1984, Orwell added, people are controlled by inflicting pain. In Brave New World, they are controlled by inflicting pleasure. In short, Orwell feared that what we fear will ruin us. Huxley feared that what we desire will ruin us. Excerpt from Amusing Ourselves to Death, Public Discourse in the Age of Show Business by Neil Postman.
Welcome back to Bright Hearth, everybody. Brian and Lexy are here before dinner time.
Yes.
Very unusual time for us to be podcasting, but here we are.
We're giving it a shot, guys, and who knows what'll happen.
We have been sick, so we haven't felt well.
Yeah, you can hear me coughing. I'm going to be coughing like the whole
by bedtime, we're kind of not feeling great right now. So
people are constantly complaining at Haunted Cosmos about me coughing.
You know, I've been noticing it more lately,
And I'm like, guys, listen, I occasionally get a virus, and it brings me to my knees as much as any other man. The man cold is a real thing, so...
I'm trying to find our question. Oh, I have our question. Our next question.
Before we get to our question, I want to let people know that the company that we plugged last time, Indigo Sundries Soap Company, they actually started an exclusive discount code for us. So check it out. If you use code Bright Hearth, Indigo Sundry Soap, they've got no seed oils, any junk, phthalates, any kind of like hormone disruptors in their soap. They have Castile soap, 10-bar bundles, 6-bar bundles, men's, women's, all kind of stuff. Check it out and use code Bright Hearth, all caps, no spaces, 10% off your order. So wanted to let everybody know about that. But babe, what do we got? What's our question today?
Our question is, how does social media fit in with the productive Christian household?
Great question. I think this is actually a really good question. And I figured if we can try to get this done while dinner's cooking, it'd probably be good to do it pretty briefly. So 3 things come to mind on this. See if you agree. First one is I think we need to talk about how we use social media, because I like to think we're a productive Christian household that uses social media. And then maybe we can talk about some dangers and things to avoid, and then maybe some good things too. Mm-hmm. Sound good?
Yes, sounds good.
So how do you use social media, babe?
How do I use it, or how would you like me to use it?
We're a team.
I use it almost purely recreationally. Uh-huh. In that my boundary that I have placed on myself is like, if it's no longer a source of inspiration, but becomes anxiety and like I'm avoiding my work in the home, I just cut it out. That's just kind of it. So because of that, there have been seasons here and there, if you've followed me for any length of time, where I just kind of ghost for a long time because I have a lot of work to do. I also am very aware that like it's a platform. People can't look at me on social media and separate me from being Brian's wife.
Yeah.
So I'm very cognizant of that. And it is a Titus 2 type place where you can be sharing helpful things. So I am aware of that. It's not like I'm passively just consuming like an anonymous account sort of a thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But I am also, if it's not fun for me, I just don't do it.
Yeah.
So, and that's, so it's going to be filled with recipes and, encouragements that to me, I'm literally telling myself these exact same things. And I think another woman might want to hear it, or, architecture stuff. I'm not trying to make it fit into some other type of a mold. It's just my personality online.
Yeah. I think that's a good starting place. Is like, as a baseline, it's perfectly okay to say that social media is a way of meeting interesting people, having fun, being lighthearted.
In some ways, I was thinking about it. It's become, because I don't have the time anymore to sit and journal like I said I used to do. It's become my source of marginalia.
Yeah.
In some ways, online. So
yeah.
Yeah.
So you're pretty, like, you do some Instagram stuff, you post pictures, just Twitter occasionally. I don't really see, you're not on Facebook at all, are you?
I'm not on Facebook. I'm not on Instagram right now either, actually, but
not on Instagram at all. See, I the thing is, I only post things on Instagram. I don't actually look through posts on Instagram. So
I don't know why I made that decision either. I can't really remember, but I'm really liking I haven't been on Twitter for a couple years.
Yeah.
So
Bottom line is that you use it intermittently, sporadically. You use it when you want to. Mm-hmm. It's definitely not something that I ever worried, like, oh my word, Lexi.
And I'm nursing right now, so I use social media more when I'm nursing.
Yeah,
because I know I get enough reading time in the day. I'm not like panicking if for 5 minutes a few times a day I'm on social media responding to people. I just don't panic about it. I'm not weird about it.
So pretty much Twitter right now.
Twitter, yeah. I personally can't handle multiple social media platforms.
Yeah. So Lexi is not dispositionally one that I worry will fall into the ditch of like, wow, she just never gets off social media. She's just constantly arguing and fighting, and Alfred's joining the party here. She's just constantly bickering with people on social media. I don't really worry about that. As for me, the way that I use I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Gab, Instagram. Those are kind of the ones, I think. And I use social media for a lot of different things. I use it for making friends with people, for kind of not being, more lighthearted. Like, I try not to take it too seriously. So I'll post lyrics from DC Talk about a man with a tat on his big fat belly wiggling around like marmalade jelly. From time to time, joke around with my friends, kind of like, it's okay to do that. I post serious stuff pretty regularly. I'll post, things from sermons and that sort of thing. But for me, the biggest thing social media is like a signal flare that you're putting up to hold the Overton window and attempt to move the Overton window within Christian culture and Reformed Christian culture on issues that I see as the most important and pressing cultural and theological issues of the day, and also highlight real work that I'm trying to get done, and we're at New Christendom Press, and that my friends and other people that I think are doing good work, trying to amplify their message, highlight it, and use it as a teaching platform. Because one of the things I think is, maybe now moving into some, let's talk about good things about social media. One of the things that I think people underestimate is how much social media can actually change your life for the better if you use it correctly.
Yeah, I was going to say that I think it was 2018 or 2019 where you told me, I want you to get on Twitter. And it's funny because some of the biggest life-changing decisions or ideas that have captivated us since then have literally just been because of Twitter.
Yeah.
And it really is a different atmosphere from Instagram. I don't really know how to describe it, but it just is.
It's word forward, not image forward is a big part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and because of that, I am very moved by words into the real life. So it helps me very quickly. Like it does increase the output of my home and my work time and my thought life to be on there in a way that is different if I just didn't have it and I was just sitting on the couch.
Yeah, I think if you follow the right people, if you find wise voices on important issues like cultural issues, political issues, social issues, things that you're interested in, Like there are so many niches where if you're interested in literally everything from gardening to Christian nationalism, like you're going to find really good cutting edge up to the date to the minute info on a place like Twitter. And so some of the biggest ideas or light bulb moments for me, biggest connections, education's a science of connections, have come from following people on Twitter and then seeing who they're following and seeing who's influencing them and where's the publishing happening on these ideas, where's the narrative being driven. It's kind of like the Areopagus of the modern day, or the agon, where ideas are being fought over and wrestled, and where philosophy and theology and life and cultural are all meeting. So I think that it's funny because I think you can use Twitter or social media as a fun, lighthearted, jovial, not taking yourself too seriously, friendship-oriented, and I think you can use it to hash out and learn about some of the most important ideas, things that will literally change your life.
Yeah.
Like I tell people, if you follow the right people, they will probably tell you things that change your life for the better if you will have ears to hear.
Yeah, I think you have to see it as a serious pursuit, though. Even if it is seriously funny at times, you can't see it as a waste of time.
Yeah.
And I've said this before about Instagram. It's why I'm very cautious about who I follow. I don't follow, like I want to be consuming things that are interesting to me and edifying, not just like, oh, cool, this random person has such and such to say that I disagree with about the war right now. Like,
right.
I don't want to get riled up about things. So
I don't hate follow people.
No. Hate follow, is that what it's called?
People hate follow people, or they'll follow people just because everything they post makes them angry.
Okay, well, no.
I actually try to opposite of that.
Yeah, no.
So
I can't believe people actually think they have time to do that. That's the thing is, I know I don't have much time, so I have to use it fruitfully.
Yes. So I think social media can be really good on those fronts if you're using it carefully. If you have important things to say and you are thinking carefully through these issues, and maybe you're a pastor or you're in some senses, leading culturally, it's one of the best places to get a message out to people. It's like wisdom in Proverbs cries aloud in the streets. Why? Because that's where the market was. That's where everybody was. Social media is a place of human gathering. So because of that, you get everything that comes with humans being concentrated in an area, from the sin to the glory. It's all there on social media. So I think that's absolutely some good aspects of social media. Our sponsor, Private Family Banking Partners, is on a mission to help Christians live out the Dominion Mandate by making a stealth-like move away from the mainstream banks and into their own privatized banking system. This innovative system is designed to guarantee uninterrupted compound interest and tax-free growth without exposure to typical stock market risks. To join this growing community that is already building wealth into future generations and converting post-mill talk into post-mill action, contact Private Family Banking Partner Chuck DeLateranty at his email, chuck@privatefamilybanking.com. That's chuck@privatefamilybanking.com.
To set up an appointment and to receive a free copy of Chuck's new book, Protect Your Money Now, How to Build Multi-Generational Wealth Outside of Wall Street and Avoid the Coming Banking Meltdown, go to the links in the show notes below.
What other positives come to mind for you, Lexi, about social media?
Like super practically, I think it's really diversified my reading probably over the last couple of years. Just seeing so many people in so many different places and what their reading history has been. It's just pulling from a wider web of libraries, intellectual libraries, I guess. Yeah, it's really pushed me in my skill set way more than Instagram has.
Yeah.
Even so much as recently, I don't even remember who it was. Someone posted, I was complaining about like how many times I've tried to learn to knit. And somebody was like, it was just brute force. It just has to be brute force. And I've literally told myself so many times over the last few weeks, like, this is going to be brute force. I will be a knitter. And guess what? I have knitted so many things lately.
You've been knitting.
And I don't know. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. I've always been a verbally driven person. It's just who I am. I don't think the average woman is that way necessarily, though. So,
do you mean that they're not that they're talkative or not? You mean that they learn more from
Yeah.
Images are more drawn to images?
Like,
or
I guess
what do you mean?
I know there are categories of women that I would be cautious to tell them ever to get on Twitter just because either they're anxiety ridden naturally or they don't know how to move what they're learning into the real world fast enough.
Yeah.
So it becomes a consumption versus production issue. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know what I think about telling everybody to get on social media. I don't necessarily think it's...
I don't think it is for everybody.
Yeah, I don't think it is either.
I would say if you're able to use it dispositionally in that, having fun, making friends, getting a diverse group of people outside of your own bubble and learning a lot and being shaped by that, that could be really helpful. I think if you have important ideas that you're chewing on off social media and building things and doing real things in the real world, it can be a great funnel to amplify a message or put up a signal flare or make connections around that. I do think, though, that we're now getting into the dangers side of it.
Okay, well, there you go.
And one of them, I think, particularly would be towards ladies. I think ladies, if you can't not, this is true of men too, actually. If you can't not be obsessed with every controversy, if you're getting genuinely worked up regularly, and it's like you're just constantly, you feel like you have to jump in on everything you see you disagree on, you have to comment on, you become an expert in all of the controversies that are going around every day, and you're keeping up with them, and you're developing a highly detailed taxonomy of all of your, people that you hate their guts. And so, of course, you follow them so that you can get riled up as much as possible. Like, that is definitely a terrible way to use social media. And it's probably making you sin if you use it like that.
Yeah, I feel like I was fairly cautious with this already on Twitter a couple years ago when I was using it.
Yeah.
But after being gone for so long and being back, I am extremely, way more than before. Like, Lexi, who get out of their business.
Yes. And there's a temptation that, like, Paul warns women particularly against busybodying for, like, going from house to house.
We could have an entire episode on this
topic. Yeah, because it is, I think, a particular temptation for the ladies. So I would urge the ladies who are listening to not become digital busybodies, not to make it your mission to argue with, especially in ways that are unbecoming for a godly woman. Like, if you find yourself constantly dunking on ministers of the gospel in churches and, that kind of thing, where you're constantly getting into basically verbal fisticuffs with men, I think that's inappropriate, and I would urge you not to do that.
You should be embarrassed.
Yeah, I would urge you not to do. I would not allow Lexi to do that if she happened to want to, which she doesn't. But I just wouldn't. I try not to generally argue with women on Twitter. I'll try to be respond or that kind of thing occasionally, but not to. I don't think that's appropriate, or I don't think it's becoming. Is the word maybe that I'd pick.
It's not a feminine tool in your tool belt to be arguing with men on a regular basis or to be snarky. That's the other thing I see a lot of women online that they just think, oh, I'm not arguing. I'm just being snarky with them. I'm just making a snarky comment about it. And it's like, no, that's also not
constant sarcasm.
Yeah. It's not, not helpful. So
it even reminds me of, I think a related issue to this would be, ladies have to understand. So we're talking about the agon. We're talking about Areopagus. We're talking about the war of ideas and sparks fly. And in some ways, I consider Twitter to be like a male space in that way. So I think that if a lady has trouble watching that discourse between two men, for example, who are debating a point, and they're constantly being offended and grabbing their petticoats and going, because the men are engaging in a male way, they should not be, watching. They should probably remove themselves and not be watching, because men engage with ideas like this in particular ways that are often, I think, they basically fly in the face of some feminine sensibilities. Because ladies often like to, they're wired towards consensus building and team building and bringing people together. That's glorious. That's actually a good thing. Like, women should be doing that. God made them to do that. And men are often wired more towards fighting and defending and, delineating in black and white. And so a lot of times what happens is men will be, pastors or will be talking about ideas like Christian nationalism or something. And you have this whole audience of petticoat grabbing ladies who are constantly aflutter and offended and constantly rejoindering and constantly like lecturing the men on the app, like, hey, stop doing that, stop. Because men, the thing that ladies don't understand is that when we like each other or when we're like fruitfully discussing something, sometimes we make fun of each other.
Yeah.
We meme on each other. It's okay.
It's okay and it's good. And as a woman, I was watching Henry V recently, and it was during the very last battle. So after his big speech and everything.
Yeah.
He's just poking constant fun at the enemy. And it was interesting because I was watching it and thinking, this is literally what's happening on Twitter in an intellectual, spiritual way. And yet there's no women involved on the physical battlefield. But the complication of Twitter is that there are women involved on the battlefield. So, I mean, there have been times when, like, I'm very aware that my pastors, all of them, are somewhat controversial sometimes, and they post things that are controversial. And it, even me, I have to be like, okay, Lexy, you know these people. You have dinner with them once a week. You see their kids every single day. And I have to tell myself, like, you know their character. Don't be frustrated by the tools they're using at the moment. You know their character, and you actually agree exactly with what they're saying.
Yeah.
So I've had to tell myself, like, you need to just walk away from this. This isn't your realm to be, going in and defending or commenting about, or So I guess what I'm trying to say by that is, like, if I have to know, Lexy, be careful. The women who don't know these men need to be just as careful, because they have to be even more charitable because they don't know the actual character of these people. Yeah. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm following you. Like, okay. I don't want you to be going out, and even with people I disagree with, I would not want my wife to be going and arguing with them. No. And
honestly, what I have learned is through many of the Twitter, this is actually why I left Twitter a couple years ago anyways, when the whole Dear Brian thing happened, is I realized these feminists literally don't think I exist. I mean, some of them were even saying she's a paid actress. Yeah. So it literally didn't matter how much time I spent defending you. Yeah. I was a made up person, a made up account. It literally didn't matter. Yeah. And so that was when, to me, I was like, what? This is not like, this isn't the way that I'm supposed to be defending my husband as a woman at all. No. So that's why I got off Twitter, is just because it was like, well, this is pointless.
And I think a lot of men have the ability to have 1,000 people call them stupid and doo-doo faces and other things and just chuckle and go home, and they're totally fine. And I know some women have that capability too, but I think a lot of women, some men too, but a lot of women really struggle with that. And it would eat them up, and they'd be anxious about it, and they'd be, I just want to correct them. I need them to change their mind, like to stop, and it'll just keep going. I've seen some threads where people will argue for like 300 comments back and forth, and no one's going to change their mind. And I'm like, guys, I don't actually think that's the best use of the time. And I think it's a particular danger with propriety when it comes to the ladies.
So would you say you use social media more to pique people's interest, not necessarily to change their mind?
I generally am not trying to debate people who have really set opinions on things into adopting my view. Okay. I'm actually trying mainly to reach the person on the fence.
Yeah.
Or the person who agrees, but they might feel isolated or out. I want basically also for my church to have a pastor who's out front addressing these things, because it does a couple things. Number one, it filters people out who are going to be enormous problems in the church, who are going to come in and they're going to be like offended at literally everything we say about sexed piety and maleness and femaleness and LGBTQ stuff. And they're just going to be offended all the time. And they want us to be constantly like what Joe Rigney in an article he wrote today as we record this about the Moscow mood. He talked about like the undue desire for respectability is a besetting sin of evangelicalism, where people want to be seen as reasonable and respectable into the world and to the broad evangelical world even. And what that will get you over time is compromise, where churches are not willing to do things that will often lose them the image of respectability. So I think as a pastor, one of the important functions today in our culture is for pastors to be out front drawing fire on the exact issues where the culture and where the evangelical culture and where the broader culture is basically attempting to counter-disciple the people, take a stand there, rally the people there, and also draw the fire myself there so that some of the people who might otherwise actually be like, yeah, I'm going to go and join this church, or I'm going to do this thing, and then weaken our church, some of those people need to be filtered out and even rebuked. So it's also a sorting mechanism, I think, that's important, particularly for leaders. There's a rule, I can't remember what the rule is called. It's like, it has some name, but basically that if an organization is not overtly and aggressively right-wing, it will eventually become left-wing. You can't just be neutral or be like secretly conservative. Liberals will eat you alive. Theological liberalism, cultural liberalism. So you need leaders who are constantly doing the thing that will sort out people who would otherwise come in and softly, slowly, winsomely, kindly, gently lead your church down the road of compromise and liberalism. So I think that's really important as well and happens on social media.
Yeah, I think that's what I meant earlier when I was trying to say I don't have time to waste. I want the people that are going to be as blunt with me as possible about all sorts of things. Yeah.
There are obviously some other dangers about social media. Like if you, your time, if you're constantly social media-ing to the neglect of your duties, obviously that's a problem. You should limit. You need to.
Can I tell you something I don't like?
Yeah, go ahead.
I know you know I don't like this. Yeah. I hate when people are like using multiple screens at a time. To me, that is just, you're sitting down watching a movie with your family and on social media. Like, I don't like that.
Yeah.
It just rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a cue to me that I'm like, either I need to put my phone away or I'm like, hey, Bri, put your phone away.
Yeah, I would first of all, I don't know. I would never do any of this. Like that is like last night. I would not do that, for example.
Or, I mean, you guys, we've all seen it at like when people are out at dinner and everyone's on their phone. Like,
yeah, that's like warning sign.
Yes. And that's just something to me, I don't like that.
Yeah, it's not, you have to be careful that social media does not become an alternate life that slowly crowds out your actual life. Social media should be a way to amplify what's good about the life you're actually living, the work you're actually doing, making connections in the real world, helping with actual things you're working on. But if it becomes basically like The Sims, you know, that game, I never played it, but
yeah.
Isn't that like you have a whole life? It was like Dwight Schrute on The Office had some version of it where he was like everything about his life was the same except he could fly.
What?
Remember Dwight Schrute?
No, I do not remember.
He was still a paper salesman in his like fantasy world, but he could fly.
That's funny.
Anyway, yeah, I think that's obviously a huge like, you know, men, if you're not getting your work done, ladies, if you're not getting your work done, that's obviously, and that includes like all of your work.
Yeah.
Another thing I think that's related to the cold open from a great book, Amusing Ourselves to Death, Neil Postman. It's a really prophetic book. He wrote it pre-internet. He was actually writing it mainly about television, but it has such prescience for the internet age as well, is that social media can give you the illusion that you know something when you actually don't. You've only read tweet-length versions of anything, and you form all your opinions from like 280 character tweets on subjects that really would require you to study several books to have a beginning of an understanding of the issue.
Yeah.
So I think that's a huge issue as well, is that it can give you the illusion of mastery.
Oh yeah. I that's something I've been telling myself since I've been using it again. Like, Lexi, you can't let this replace your reading life. Cause it is interesting. Yeah. You get interesting bits of information here and there, which for someone like me, that does lead me deep down like research rabbit trails where I do want to get to the book this person learned it from. But then are you actually picking up the book and not following another rabbit trail? Or are you know what I mean? So
that's great.
Yeah, you have to be really, again, just disciplined, putting up the right fences, but also allowing enough inflow that you're feeling more creative.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm speaking in very female terms about this, I feel like.
That's okay. You're a female. Huxley in Brave New World, I think, got closer than Orwell in 1984 in a lot of these issues where we were enslaved by cheap pleasures in Brave New World versus tyrannical overlords in 1984. one of the dangers is that each tweet or each social Instagram post or each whatever is like a little sugar packet of dopamine that you go from sugar packet to sugar packet to sugar packet to sugar packet. And what they should be instead of that, if you're using it wisely, like you said, Lexi, is it should be like a footnote or a hyperlink that takes you deeper into doing more work in a subject.
Yeah.
And picking up more lasting and resources with greater depth. That can be deeply helpful. The other one can give you an illusion of vast knowledge when you really actually have a surface level bare understanding of almost everything. And that's very dangerous because often we get more opinionated the less we know about something, and our opinions can be like wildly immune to reason.
Yeah.
At that point. Anything else for dangers that come to mind? I know there's a million.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, I don't know how to put this. I've seen multiple women that get on social media and they're like, oh yeah, I'm a trad wife. I'm a trad homeschool mom. I'm a trad this. I'm a trad that. And then something doesn't go their way. Like some genuinely tragic thing happens and they suffer and I don't know why, but they like throw it all out the window and become hyper cynical about things.
Yeah.
And then hyper critical about quote unquote trad people.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just that in real life, maybe they're not that way. It's just amplified on social media. I don't know, but
yeah,
I would caution women against that. Like projecting your emotions while you're going through trials. Like I don't process that online. Like I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, hey, pray for us. You know, we had a miscarriage, or hey, pray for us. We have a cancer diagnosis or something like that, obviously. Mm-hmm. But I think, especially in the generation under us, I've noticed this. Like I didn't get an iPhone until Ari was born. Yeah. So I went through high school without one, my childhood without one.
Yeah.
You know, my first pregnancy without one. But these kids younger than us that are actually adults now, not kids, who had it from a very young age, they have to process every little bit of information online.
Online constantly.
Like 5:04, I made coffee, baby woke me up. Like in addition to processing the suffering.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that's the appropriate place for it. It makes me wonder how many real life friends they have, or just like it. Honestly, it makes me question their husbands. Like if I did that, please tell me no.
Yeah.
So that's just something, if you're younger than us, we're in our early 30s and you feel like you need to explain every single bit of your day, take a picture, then everything single moment through your house, through your kitchen, please stop. Like you might be the person that needs to turn that off and that needs to invite people over to your house to have actual conversations instead. Yeah. I just don't like that because I'm just thinking, like, I know how long it takes me to post what I post. What are you doing with your time?
Yeah. I think you actually brought up something that is also a danger here, and that's putting on an online costume of a thing.
That is the flip side of
trad,
this, yes.
Or I'm whatever this is, but it doesn't really reflect in your life, and it doesn't have roots, and you don't really have any depth of awareness of that thing. So you can do this with anything. You can put on your online costume and be like, I am a Covenanter, Scottish, Presbyterian, this, all the way down. It's like, my brother in Christ, you are a member at an evangelical megachurch, and you've read 2 Puritan paperbacks, and now you are LARPing as a deeply rooted Scottish Covenanter Presbyterian, or whatever else it is, like you, or a trad wife, or whatever. You can put these things on and LARP as them and wear them as costumes. It's okay to be a novice at something. That's totally fine. But what happens is that people then rapidly, they change their opinions about a million things from really shallow research and social media memeing. And then they adopt this whole persona that's not actually connected vitally to their life, their actual life. And it ends up shipwrecking a lot of people because then they get, one little poke to the soap bubble and they throw off the whole thing. Yes. And all of a sudden the person who was like super edgy right wing.
You trad wives are, you're earning your salvation with your homemade sourdough bread. And like they just.
And they're just like.
It's like, no. You obviously didn't have the right orientation to begin with.
All of a sudden they're deconstructing and they're like, actually, I know everything about that because I used to be one. And I'm like, a lot of you didn't used to be one. You actually just pretended to be one online for 10 minutes. And so you actually have no idea what you're talking about. And then other people are like, oh, yeah, of course, those people are bad. Like those people, this insider just debunked everything about them. And you're like, no, they had no depth. They had no root in the thing that they were putting on as a costume. It wasn't real. It was just an illusion all along. So you have to be careful not to be rapidly morphed into basically like an online costume version of a thing without, again, you shouldn't be changing your mind on large theological issues from a tweet. Maybe it makes you read a book or 2 books or 5 books or 10 books, and then you change your mind, and it's 6 months or it's a year or it's 2 years. Great. I've changed my mind on things before. But don't just let somebody tweet you into something all of a sudden, or build an aesthetic that all of a sudden you're drawn to and you're like, I'm going to become that whole thing. And pretty soon, again, like I've seen this with everything. You have these young, like 20-year-olds who are all of a sudden like Eastern Orthodox and, you know, or Roman Catholic or Anglican or Lutheran or Presbyterian or whatever it is, or 1689 Baptist.
He really likes this domino.
He loves that domino.
Good domino.
Anyway, I think that's probably good. Any thoughts before we land up the plane? Before we land up the plane?
You know, check in with your husband every once in a while.
Yeah.
Let him be brutally honest.
Yeah.
Am I online too much? I mean, and it's hard. He doesn't know. He's not home with you.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't know. So you have to be the big girl who is brutally honest with yourself and putting your phone somewhere else.
Yeah.
If you're not getting your work done. So
excellent.
I Misty's new book is out, Simplified Organization, and just stuff she says has helped me figure a lot of this out.
Yeah,
like how am I using this to avoid my actual work? Am I looking at the plan to do the plan, or am I looking at my phone to avoid the plan? Yeah. So check out her book, because I think it will help just kind of give you guys some hooks to hang these social media thoughts on.
It's called Simplified Organization. Misty Winkler, which is Mystie, and then Winkler is Winkler. I would say link in the description, but every time I say that, I forget to do it anyway. So look it up yourselves, guys. You could do it. You're big kids. So thanks for listening, guys. We appreciate you. If you would like to help continue to make this show possible, you can become a patron. And every week, I know we're going every other week now with Bright Hearth, but every week we put out a short little patron-only podcast called In the Kitchen. Often it's Lexi going through something very granular with home organization or feeding sick people or clothing your children, like a million different things. Sometimes we discuss issues related to the episode. That's called In the Kitchen. It's there at patreon.com/brighthearth. There is a link for that in the description. And also a lot of the tiers of support come with like a cool Feed the Patriarchy mug or some other stuff. So thanks, guys. We hope that this episode was edifying to you. Remember, Festina Lente, make haste slowly, and may the Lord bless you and yours.